The race for playoffs is now a game of inches at the bottom of the scoreboard. 1 point is all that separates you from the bracket, and 1 point is all that separates Luminosity and Wildcard at that outer boundary. But Wildcard only have 2 games to play this week, meaning if they don't get any points from this game, then Luminosity are going to lock them out altogether. But not just Wildcard. Luminosity now have the chance to eliminate both Los and OXG in the same fell swoop that they could eliminate Wildcard, and all they have to do is lose in overtime, and that's going to be what happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is a crazy situation. I didn't think going in today that this Luminosity Wild game would be such a pivotal factor for these lower tier teams of, I mean, well, not lower tier, but lower standing place teams that if they don't, that you're riding on Wildcard here to just give you a chance at possibly making playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Luminosity, though, I don't think they're going to go out so gently today. I mean, they've definitely been playing really well, and the big part that sets them aside from those bottom 3 teams is Luminosity has looked really good against the top teams, to the point that you think that they could actually be one of those teams that breaks into that top 4, that top 3 system if they just have a little bit more consistency. And you can see by their attacker and their defensive win percentages, they're just there. They're just on the cusp of becoming that top echelon of team.
Yeah, they're right there, and this matchup is also relatively even, just based on attack and defense win rates. So in order to have one game that maybe decides the fate of the entire playoff race in Stage 2, at least it's one where both teams seem like they match up pretty well at 2 wins apiece.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's the most even for sure, absolutely.
I love that for Wildcard. All right, Luminosity up first. This is the game that they need to go their direction, because when they played Sonics on Cafe last week, it didn't. They had a really good shot, but they weren't really able to wake up until the very, very end of that matchup, which against the Sonics you might say is great, but still for LG, that's a 3rd loss. It's not the thing that they want in order to make playoffs.
Well, and this is something that we've talked about with Luminosity throughout this entire stage, is their constant need of improvement and where they can improve. And so far, we have seen that. Even with that loss that they just found from Sonics, there were still things to take away from that game, whereas had they, fixed some certain situations or read a situation a little better, we could have possibly seen overtime. We could have possibly seen just better results. But even when you look at the standings and we talk about consistency with this team, which this is what they have been, and consistently improving. I mean, Silent has been dropping big numbers for this team. He's been a very pivotal factor for this. But when you look at the rest across the board, 6-9, 6-9, 6-9, obviously 4-10 out of Eddie, but he was playing that blitz, not finding success. But again, everyone is still finding that success. And the biggest thing that was truly throwing this team off outside is denying some plants was honestly their pacing and positioning and just their general understanding of what they wanted to do in some of these rounds. In this first round, round 4, well, I say first round, in this first clip, round 4, you see this drone. They get this information. They know where Ambi is, and they could use this intel. Ambi doesn't get this drone. They could use this drone, force Ambi out of position, or just even baiting a play here for that knock to come up the stairs to get this free kill. That's obviously not what you see happens here. It just comes down to a lack of communication there. And because of that, they give up the first pick right there. Then it comes into this situation of Silent. We touched up on this with Sonics because they displayed a beautiful play of composure here and not getting too overzealous because of them losing map control, because Silent inevitably takes this power position of killing this guy on Cocktail and then throwing the round away.
Yeah, he just runs away, gives up that position that they fought so hard to get. If you just maintain that Cocktail position, you can play the post plan, maybe get a defuse down, but immediately, it doesn't matter how good your preparation is. If you just give up the position that you fought for, you put yourself in a situation where now it was useless. It was redundant, and you always have to play like catch up because you lost the key position to win the round.
And now for round 6, they clearly want to take Library. They clearly want to get in here, go for a plant, cause a distraction. They hacked all the cameras in here. They were set up for success. But the problem is they weren't set up for success. They had no one applying the top floor pressure, trying to get that vertical control. The only thing they did was manage to get into half of this space here. But outside of that, nothing is being done. There's no other map control that can be taken. You lost.
They just stand here.
Yeah, you lost your entire team at the top floor. Sure, Woos does try to go for a flank here, which I can appreciate, but you don't have that vertical pressure because you didn't gain that vertical pressure. So it ultimately leaves you in a stalemate here of we didn't get anything done outside of getting into Library. And it's those key things that had they been a little more on track with their communication, had they been more on pace with one another, had they just played these situations as a team, we could have possibly seen, like I said, an overtime or even Luminosity possibly winning this game.
Yeah, and we saw a concept of a plan there once they get into the site, but there's just fundamentals of each individual player. When you're put in the position, doesn't matter how much prep you have to be able to cognitively think on your feet. And once they got there, there was just no diffuser being put down, no trades, no 2v1. It just, everyone stands still.
Team top floor.
Yeah, they just stand still and they just wait for something to happen, and it just didn't wait for them to happen. I mean, nothing happened.
Just didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Since we've been talking about this LG team since the beginning of the stage, we've presented every problem as it's a relatively easy thing to fix, right?
Yes.
It was the entry thing, now it's communications and mistiming. So is that thing that they displayed in that Sonics game something that they could like fix from one week to another?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've touched up on them many times of how well they improve from game to game to game. Obviously, they're still going to have issues. They're still a newer team, and we can say they can be on that upper echelon. You still have to run into these fundamental errors, but again, they are quick to adapt. They are quick to then bring it into the next game where they didn't have it before.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt going into this game against Wildcard, which is one of the lower placing teams, that they can actually have that situation be handled and managed to the best of their ability than what we might have saw versus Sonics.
Fair play. That loss does now put them in the 2 and 3 column, but it's the same thing for Wildcard. But that works out because Wildcard finally got another win that wasn't over a bottom team. Actually, it still was. They won on Chalet over Los. It was 7-4. We needed them to prove something was working well this stage, and they finally did. Chalet is the only map that they've managed to get any wins on, so just in time during the Super Week, something looks like it's finally going according to plan.
Yeah, we were really worried going into that game if they were going to be able to handle Los's aggression and how they would fare on attack. And those are both questions that were answered immediately just on one side because they were very good at cutting off the middle of the map. How Chalet kind of is if you're on that 90 window, you can kind of cut through the map. They cut off all of Los's rotates, and they were doing a really good job at just isolating the over-aggression and playing together, which is a big thing that they needed on attack. And now this is a round against Los, round 4, where you see Wildcard is setting up to go for a highway take. Bosco isolates a 1v1. Even though he's going to run and burn himself in the flames, he can do whatever he wants because the team understood that they can isolate that 1v1. And behind him, you see the 3 remaining members from Wildcard all flood through highway, taking up all of Los's help. So there's no way that they could have gotten to the guy in the corner of library. And then even here, they don't just wait, they don't stall their timeout, they don't give 1v1s, they Deimos track, and they go for a nice 3v1 conversion to confirm the round. And that's just what we wanted to see from Wildcard because we were so worried about how they were going to isolate Los's aggression and if they were going to be able to keep playing together on attack, especially on an aggressive map like Chalet. And that's everything that we saw that gives me hope that they're on the right track, but we need to see that against a better tier of teams.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It almost reminds me a little bit of that Dark Zero clip that you showed, that when they can find success on their attacks, they look really good at. And that was a pure demonstration from Wildcard of what that glimpse and what that future can look like if that roster can be that coordinated, if they can work together, if they can go off what Bosco is coordinating and having them do. But if you can't do that against a top team and one of the better teams, you're going to keep falling flat on your face like you have been. And especially with how dire this situation is, that you need these points, you need to beat Luminosity and get these 3 points to just help you even get into that contention of making playoffs. I mean, it has to be perfect today.
Yeah, they looked super confident in that game against Los, and if they had managed to keep that confidence up at any of the other games prior to this point in the stage, we probably wouldn't be sitting at the precipice of them not making playoffs based on the result of just one matchup. We talked to Bay a couple of days ago just to get his thoughts on how this stage has gone because, honestly, for a rookie, he's not been doing half bad.
I'm Bay, and I'm a player for Wildcard. The group stage hasn't been too bad. We started off pretty slow, but in our most recent week, we tried to transition into trying some new stuff, and we have such little problems now. I think once we figure those out, we'll be just incredible. The stuff we found that's going really well is we have a lot of talent on our roster. All these guys, they have so much experience. There's just there's one thing where it's whenever we switch halves, man, we slow down a little bit, and that's really just our main goal we're trying to work on right now. Coolest thing in Tier 1 is now a lot of my family watches my games more than whenever I was Tier 2. It's just a lot more exposure, I think. It feels pretty good to do good, as always, but more than anything, I just want to make an event because I've never played at an event or a LAN or anything. It'd just be cool to go to an event and just meet everybody in real life, meet everybody I play Siege with. Obviously, a team I want to rematch with is DZ. That 5-1 throw was, that was rough, man. Just every game has been pretty professional. I even have some of those players DMing me. I've always DM'd them because I like those players, and anytime they do bad, I'll just tell them keep your head up, whatever. And I think that just earns you a lot of respect. I'm most excited for the LG game because Woos was my ex-teammate on the aerial, so I'm gonna have to put him down and then make fun of him in the group chat. Our expectations obviously are just win as many games as we can. No matter what the outcome is, we're just gonna take it game by game. Either way, we'll just improve and we'll nonstop get better. I don't think we'll ever give up or anything.
Bay said that he was most looking forward to the game against Luminosity because it means he gets to play his old teammate Woos. But the thing is, Wildcard now have not just themselves rooting for themselves, but Oxygen and Los are now praying against all odds that Wildcard can knock off Luminosity on this matchup, because if they do, it keeps everyone else's chances for making playoffs alive, because there's only now one spot left. And all Luminosity have to do is get 1 point from this game. They're locked in. Everyone else is locked out.
Again, the unfortunate bit when you don't have a great start or even a mid to great start at the stage, I mean, you need to be perfect now. There is no excuse. There's nothing. You have to leave everything on the playing field, because if you don't, again, you're going to find yourself in a LCQ playing through a hell at that point of just the randomness of what LCQs do bring out in terms of that open qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, Luminosity, I'd say, is the team that we expected more from, just because they've been building up against better opponents, whereas Wildcard, I mean, they've been on a slow turtle pace. So I would compare this game as kind of like the tortoise and the hare, you know, just a little bit. And I think
I agree with that. That's a good analogy.
I'd say it really comes down to the map too. Is that Skyscraper?
That's Skyscraper.
I mean, I think that's
Wildcard likes this map.
Only the time we saw it was when Sonics and DZ played it in day 2. That's it.
I think this is obviously...
We're North America. We don't like very much map variants for some odd reason.
I think this is a good map for mostly Wildcard, because it does make me feel very familiar. We keep bringing it up with Wildcard, but Oregon, any map that is as similar to Oregon, where it's very defender-sided, very difficult to move on attack, that's where Wildcard is usually a lot better equipped to handle. But Wildcard's attacks have been pretty good as well, too. And so far, I believe, you said, what was the game that we saw that was on Skyscraper? It was
just DZ Sonic.
SQ, DZ. And we saw very fast, aggressive plays from Sonics.
And I think the last time we saw, if I'm not wrong, we saw Luminosity play this was, at least in group stage, was last stage with Hat on the roster, where they played M80.
They beat M80 that time,
them 7-5. So it's been quite a while to see them play here back at the stage. But I mean, again, I do think this does favor Wildcard a little bit. They do like this map, so it's a little interesting that Luminosity wants to bring them there. But again, just with how Luminosity is playing with their team play and everything, they ultimately have looked better in Wildcard in literally every single aspect. And again, now with points being as important as they possibly can be, this really is just more so on Wildcard's shoulder of playing that perfect siege that we know that they can play. It's just a matter of, are they going to demonstrate it here? But again, with the map and how it plays out, I should expect to see that happen. Will that happen? I don't know. They've been very flip-floppy.
Yeah, the biggest reason why I'm putting my cards on the table and believing in Luminosity is just because the one true thing that we always believe in Wildcard, which is their constant, confident defenses, being able to get 5-1, 4-2s on defense, is something that has been shaked up recently. I don't think Wildcard is as dominant on the defensive side as they have been in stage 1. So in that being said, I think Luminosity has just been more consistent all around the board and individually too.
And they have. When you even compare the stats comparison, I believe Luminosity was 5th and 6th for both attack and defense. So I mean, that already shows that they clearly can muster up a performance on both sides. Is it flawless? Is it perfect? No. But if you're in comparison to Wildcard, it is far better and far more superior. So again, for that alone, regardless of the map, I just got to go with Luminosity just because of the performance that we're constantly seeing out of
I'm going to say Luminosity are currently 5th and 6th on attack and defense, and I think Wildcard are in 7th for both. But it does mean the defensive sides might be a little bit closer if all we look at for any particular reason is the math. The stage is set. If Wildcard get at least 1 point from this matchup, then there's still a possibility for teams to vault over Luminosity in the playoff race. But if Luminosity get more, then suddenly we've already got our top 6 locked in, and then we play 2 days worth of games just to lock in our bracket. Wildcard and Luminosity suddenly for playoff stakes with Intero and Jesse.
Thank you very much. I am incredibly excited for this matchup, as both of these teams are so close in the standings. But as the desk set the stage, Jesse, there is a lot at stake here for not just Luminosity and Wildcard, but the other bottom teams. If Los and OXG want a shot at making it into the playoffs, then this one's got to go to overtime. Wildcard's got to get those 2 points. Luminosity will take 1. That still leaves the door open for a possible change up here, but I don't really want us to lock in the playoffs already. LG can make that possible. It's time for your favorite day, part of the day, the operator bands.
Indeed, and they're kind of easy to call. When it's Luminosity, they tend to always ban the same operators. It should be Monty Azami for them. The Ying, I didn't expect. I was expecting Grim Bandit. Wildcard have historically been banning nothing but Grim and Bandit on this map. They will swap out the attacker on that scale, and they will not swap out the defender. This will be an Azami. It's been banned by LG every single game so far this stage. They'll take their time with it, but there she is. So good to see it. The Death talked about how stylistically this map could be good for Wildcard. I don't disagree. You know, Wildcard, they're not the worst skyscraper team historically for the stats. I will say the last time they played it, they lost 7-4 to Fluffy Aimers, which is not incredibly inspiring, but it was an off-season tournament. It was their own Wildcard restart game, so maybe don't want to read into it too much. Probably the bigger stat is that LG are undefeated at the moment on Skyscraper this season, 4-0. They got 2 wins in stage 1, beating M80 and SSG, and then 2 wins in the offseason, beating both M80 and then PSG Talon from Korea. So LG, those were different rosters. You know, they didn't have this 5-man team. They didn't have Woos for any of those previous 4 tournaments. So take that as you will. But the other 4 members on this team are very comfortable with Skyscraper, and they're going to show that immediately by playing the least played bomb site here in round number 1.
All right, well, let's start off with a bit of a surprise. Why don't we? Both of these teams sit on the cusp of the playoffs. Luminosity has that last playoff spot with 6 points. Wildcard sitting with 5 points on the outside looking in. It's been a very interesting run for this Wildcard team. Bay has made quite the name for himself. But there's other veterans on this wildcard team who haven't maybe had the season that they've wanted. The big one that jumps to mind is Bosco. Bosco took some time off from competing at the top level. He is back now in fine fashion, but is playing a lot of those unsexy, unfavorable roles, and his stat line has suffered for it. The rest of the team, though, they've 1 win in regulation, 1 win in overtime. They've tried their best, but finding your footing as a new team has been really challenging for these wildcard players. As for LG, you know this roster. Woos, the only member coming onto the team from the previous stage, or who wasn't here present in the previous stage. And LG has been pretty decent. 2 wins, 3 direct losses in regulation. That's why they're sitting at the points that they are at. In some of those games, you have to imagine LG would have loved to have had an overtime loss in, or I mean, even an overtime win, but just an overtime loss would certainly have helped them in the standings. First bit of contact, slowed down by that Zoto canister.
Yeah, all 5 players in LG holding up above, as you often see on this bomb site. Again, the vertical pressure can deny every single plant. The logic bombs come out to try to clear through top. They enter in through top. Now we see Bosco over by the Dragon side, but they really don't have any pressure on that side of the map for LG. That does tell Wildcard that this part of the map is free. They can get into Dragon, they can get in through Drum. But at the moment, they've yet to find a kill. Now they pop that last logic bomb, but it does result in a death for Bosco. Man, you were just talking about traded out by Bay. We'll take down Kickstroke here as the roam clear continues on. There still really isn't enough, though. 4 players up here on the roam still. Bay, excuse me, trying to find one of these picks, but immediately spotted out. Eddie hiding in the corner finds that one. He gets traded out too. It's pure chaos on the top floor, Parker, but it has worked out for Wildcard with a 1-man advantage.
Wi-Fi and Woo still at full HP. Kansan's been scratched a little bit. The other players all still well in hand. Kansan dies to Woos. The numbers will equalize. They don't want to come to blows here, Jesse, but they want to do so with a lot of time left. Spiker, the final 2 kills. Wildcard close it out. What a mess of a round.
Not too bad. A little Grim play, a little Dokkaebi play. They pushed through the top floor. You would have been forgiven if you thought that the bomb site was Office and Exhibition. Of course, it was not. It was down below. But LG really did just play that simply like an Office hold. They had the Electro Claw that kept the Office wall closed the whole time. There wasn't a ton of pressure coming out elsewhere on that map. It was very direct in through Dragon. And so despite being a bit linear, the gunfights did favor Wildcard. They managed to wrestle back that man advantage, and they really did great work with it. No one player in particular really popping off. Spiker finding the last 2, which was nice to see, but everybody contributing except for Bosco, who was that opening death even still, he got traded. That will add to his cost. So every player on Wildcard having a bit of an impact, working as a team as they push through that top floor. That's probably their biggest strength. This squad, having worked together for so long, they've made a few changes coming into the season, but you can tell they really do want to work as a unit. You can tell that they want to keep on building with this core that they have, and it's a good start. 1-0 attacking on Skyscraper.
5 seconds to go.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I expect this to be a really hard-fought match between these teams. Both the Wildcard LG matchup that we're watching and then the C9 BC and SSG match later, I anticipate both of those will go the distance. We had a bit of a quick one to start off the day with M80 and Los, but OXG and DZ went the distance, and just based on the way that these teams play, I suspect that we're going to see that, and it will be not a long night by any stretch, but certainly not a quick one. Skyscraper's only had 9 rounds played. It is the least played map before we got into this contest, and it was 4 rounds for the attack, 5 rounds for the defenders. But that's garbage. You can't really do anything with those numbers. So we basically just have to look at the other regions or just wait for a couple more plays here. Right now, we're not looking at any real attacker-sided maps, so Luminosity should have the advantage for the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, Skyscraper, historically, one of the most defender-sided maps in all of Rainbow Six Siege. So you don't really expect the introduction of any small operators to change that too much. We expect this to be defender-sided even still. Eddie in a very close-range gunfight, of course, out here on the house stairs. It'll be his teammate Wi-Fi who finds the opening, traded right back, but no, Wi-Fi for 2. Finds Bay on the main breach too. All of these players just on a roam extension. The site is Tea Room Karaoke. That won't stop Kicksrow from being taken out by Spiker, as these trades just do not stop. Luminosity through both rounds 1 and 2 have loved to take these gunfights. And even still, you see players quite aggressive. Wi-Fi inside a terrace. Eddie back in VIP now. Woos and drums. They have mostly fallen off, but no, still the pressure comes out. They'll take down Spiker.
What is the pacing of this matchup so far, Jesse?
Right?
It's been an incredible 2 rounds in terms of action. Neither of these teams taking their time. They just want gunfight after gunfight, which, fair enough. It's fun to watch. Makes for a good show. In regards to Wildcard, it doesn't make for a good result in this particular round. Wildcard had the advantage and managed to carry it over to a win in the previous round. Now they find themselves on the wrong side of a 2v3. Bosco and Spiff have their work cut out for them. If Luminosity can be patient, it's going to be a really tough nut to crack for Wildcard, as both of these WC players will have to inch their way up from the office side of the map. I think Wi-Fi was just using the Falcon skin on the MP7, by the way. That's what we were talking about in regards to how nice those skins are. Bosco peeks over by Geisha, and it's a boss G to the face. Spiff could be the next one, depending on whether or not Woos will see him. Right now by drum, 15 seconds to go. LG not giving anything, but the boss G, nope. They'll let Spiff take an engagement. Looks over, and he actually could have had a double relatively easily, but no bullet pen to be had. LG sealed the deal. Tie game.
Very rare that you see Wi-Fi getting opening picks on the defense. He's taken only 7%. He's typically been the primary anchor for LG, but he's been very solid. Of course, still in his rookie year. Wi-Fi, one of those players that I think a lot of people have been enjoying watching throughout this stage on LG. It's first time here in competitive Siege. Started out through stage 1 and has been this kind of flex player, this anchor who can move around when needed for Luminosity. That 2K entry really did start things nice for Luminosity. You don't often think about Skyscraper as a particularly gunfight heavy map. You know, typically you think this map is all about, can we get the Geisha wall open? Can we roam clear? Can we force like a 2v1 push on somebody who's playing maybe inside a minibar? The angles are often very favorable for the defenders, but the defenders often spread themselves out, so it's often a man advantage for the attackers, and you kind of see how that plays through. This time it just feels like it's pure chaos as the gunfights come out very early. The intel not always there from Wildcard, the trade potential not always there from Wildcard, but in that first round it was good enough to find those trades, to get those gunfights going, and then again, the man advantage just favoring Luminosity in the second round. So if this pacing keeps up, we're in for a very fun game, Parker, but it could get a little chaotic.
I like chaos. I'm fine with chaos, and I'm fine with the enjoyment that comes with it. I think it was, I can't remember if I was working with you or if we said this when I was working with Dez doing Brazil the other day, but Sometimes you have a technical masterclass, and it ultimately lends itself to quite slow and boring siege.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get a very messy and chaotic game, and it's very enjoyable. One of the messiest games that we've ever seen at a high level of competitive play, it wasn't tier 1 certainly, were the qualifiers where DZ played against 92 Dream Team, and that was an absolute mess of a game. But it lives in infamy, I think, in the minds of so many viewers because it was unpredictable, and it was just balls to the walls the entire time. If Luminosity and Wildcard keep this up, I don't think we'll see the same hijinks that we did in that qualifier matchup, but both of these teams have been setting an exhilarating pace, except for this round. A minute into action, nobody has bothered to engage each other on the team.
You don't often see doctor promotions on Skyscraper, but it would be fun if we could. Obviously, minute 45 left on this clock, and no gunfight still, so a slower pace than we saw in the first couple of rounds. Spiff out here on the rappel looking into Geisha, probably not going to be given up by Silent. They know they've got a crossfire here on this wall. They can walk in and fight Drum, but if they do that, there's a guy in Geisha to try to support. There's the fight, maybe from outside if they could pick off Wi-Fi, but it's just damage down onto Spiff. Even if they clear these Geisha players, they still got to hit sight. The time's starting to become a real problem for them. They'll clear Wi-Fi out of Drum now. Will the trade come through from Silent? Yet to find a kill in this game, but he does clean off Spiff, the player that was already low HP from that first gunfight with Wi-Fi. Hunting for a second now here too. The barricade keeps him in this corner. The flashbang as well, making it very difficult. Another flash comes on out. The C4 to help, but somehow through the flash, Silent gets the second kill.
I don't know if that was Bosco just misplaying it, but that really shouldn't have been quite the ordeal for Wildcard. They walk away with even numbers, and you've got Spiker and Bay as the last two remaining. Spiker has been towards the bottom of the standings for every Wildcard game so far, so him sitting at 4 and 1 kills is nice to see. Then you've got Secret Weapon Bay still on the board. You mentioned the pacing. Once again, a huge rush at the halfway point of the round, and a little bit of calm. Wildcard still need to get to the actual bomb site to pull this off. Bay will circle around looking for a possible weakness, an exploit towards the back. Eddie gunned down by Spiker. Last one is Kicks Rose to the left of Bay. He'll watch the door frame and will give the position away, but Spiker wins that one too. He ate his Wheaties this morning. 6 kills for Spiker, and Wildcard take the lead back.
6 and 1 from the flex player of Wildcard, Spiker. He's been playing Rainbow Six Siege since he was 12 years old. Became a pro last year at 18 with Parabellum. Moved to Mirage and then's been on Wildcard this whole season. Really good game starting off from him. He's always been very strong in some of those roam clearing positions. And of course, late round in this game, salvaging what should have been a very tough 2v2 push. Oftentimes on that bomb site, you need a lot of intel, a lot of time to work in kills when you've only got pressure coming in from that dragon or from that mezzanine side of the map. It can be awkward. So for them to have those couple of kills coming out, despite the angle being held, Spiker really stepping up and having a hell of a game. You should be feeling very, very excited for this 2-1 lead now over Luminosity.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, Spiker having this game allows Wildcard to play with a bit more confidence. We're used to seeing scorelines like 1 and 4, 2 and 6 from Spiker, while Bay and Kansan lead the way and Spiff has the odd good game as well. And when you look at the lineup for Wildcard, Bay and Kansan are the two players who should constantly be in competition for top frag. As for the Luminosity side, it's usually spread out. Woos is having a great game, though. He's a rookie, too. As LG settle into a roster that, as we pointed out, has stayed relatively the same. An Electric Claw. Very common for that to be there.
It's both walls, which is kind of nice. One EMP should be able to handle it though, so that'll clear it out, and they will be able to reach both of those walls with one exothermic. If you put it far enough to the right, it'll blow up both, and then that Electric Claw doesn't do a whole lot. I say that, there's no EMPs being brought, so maybe they can deal with the Flores drone, get it from below, Brava hack it, a couple of options that they do have. Bomb site is Barbecue Kitchen, meaning that Luminosity have now played the 4 different bomb sites in a row. They've not repeated a site even still, despite only winning one of them and thus only locking one of those 4 sites. They will concede a lot of this ground over towards Office, but the gunfights will really start to come around here in Drum and of course over by Karaoke. These are the first couple of rooms that Wildcard will really need to take before they can go for this top-down execute.
Again, we passed the 1 minute mark with no real action happening between these teams. Lots of stall potential on the side of Luminosity. Wildcard left to cut through castle barricades, deal with banshees, and avoid the odd goo mine as they search for their path towards the site. With the pace that Wildcard have been trying to set, I do like these stall ops. You can bring a Legion, you can bring a Capkin, you can bring Frost. There's lots of tools that you have. Nice shot from Eddie to start off a potential push from Wildcard. It will slow them as Spiff dies. Spiff only on 1 and 3 at the moment. And he's eliminated in a position where now Luminosity can hunker down on this karaoke side of the map. The bomb site is down below, but they still want to guard it. And as we saw in round number 1, you got to take top floor control before you can pivot towards the site.
Fuse get in the hands of Bosco, only half HP. He's going to be in a bit of a tough spot. He needs to win this gunfight. Coming into Eddie, will shut down that player, get the trade. Spiker at the same time, binds Kicksrow. That's this top floor, primarily cleared out. It's only Woos inside of Geisha who's been left all alone, unable to trade his teammates at the same time. Silent and Wi-Fi starting to get into a couple of fights as well down below. Woo's in a bit of a pickle, though. He's got the hash to drop if he needs it. With the drone coming out, he will choose to drop. Does he make it out alive? He doesn't actually choose to commit to it. He's still up here, Parker. He wants a fight.
And Woos, if he's gone undroned, he could clean out. He could swipe right through this team. He finds 1 and 2. Is a third within reach? Yes, it is! What a play from Woos from above, holding court inside of Geisha. Spiker with his 7 kills will go for the gamble, but it's silent off screen to finish the round. You gotta get intel. You have to get intel if you're on attack, and not knowing Woos's positioning is the undoing of Wildcard that round.
Woos and Bay, the two rookie players coming in this stage for Luminosity and Wildcard, they used to team together at the very start of this year, back in January, February, on Aerial Arise. After they left that team, one of them went to SSG Academy, one of them went to Makers, and I will say, they've played against each other through Tier 2 4 times since they swapped off and were no longer playing on the same team. Woos has won every single one of those engagements. Being on Makers has been able to find the success in a lot of those games. Bay not as successful. So as we see those big pop-off performances from Woos, maybe some flashbacks coming into the mind of Bay, wanting to avoid a similar result here. But it's anybody's game, still 2-2 on Skyscraper.
No closer to a resolution. And again, I mean, this is a defender-sided map. As you pointed out, the numbers that we have discarded based on the way it's been played in the NAL a single time are not particularly relevant. But yeah, I mean, when you look at a map like Skyscraper, like Clubhouse, like Theme Park when it was in the map pool, these were very defender-sided maps throughout their entire history. Wildcard taking 2 rounds as quickly as they did does bode well for the remainder of this matchup. If Wildcard can snipe a 3rd round right now, or in the next round too, and they will be very well suited for when they swap sides. We see this exact same thing in the DZ and OXG matchup. And DZ did end up riding out that favorable side, as we speculated. Can Luminosity do the same for the first half? Wildcard bringing some very interesting tools, an Ashe, a Blitz, and a Nook. Very little objective play for Wildcard, very little utility. This is just straight and to the point, and boy oh boy do I like it.
Not uncommon. Wildcard have planted only 6 times. That's averaging once per game so far this stage, fewer than any other team. Eddie alone has that many plants this stage for Luminosity, and he's not the only one who's planted on that team. So Wildcard, of course, not the most objective-focused squad. They like to go in and get their kills. And can they do that again here with the blitz of Bosco? If they go in through Geisha and get into Karaoke, they could actually find themselves a plant spot. They brought some smoke grenades as well to try to help out with that. But at the moment, they're still stalling out, waiting to prepare this push, right? They've got players outside of Geisha. They've got a Nook down on the bottom floor. They might have some players top black to come in here as well. But option 1, you've got to clear out Woos. And when he's 7-2 in this exact room that he popped off in the previous round, that's not an easy task.
No, not one bit. Goodbye to Spiff. Woos just knows how to make Geisha work. The Blitz caught in a crossfire. Gunned down by Eddie as Bay gets on the board for Wildcard. So there's still some hope for the Jesters. They almost had another opportunity. Eddie's close quarters. He loses that engagement. Kansan all the while trades elsewhere. Eddie was looking for another, but he gets a bit too hasty. Spiker punishes him for that eagerness. 8 kills on Spiker, 8 kills on Woos. And these two will be the story as they collide on this karaoke and tea engagement. Spiker will rotate around to join up with Kansan, but he doesn't see Silent through the wall, and LG now has the numbers advantage. Kansan's pulled off some clutches before, but this is a tough one, and Woos will finish the deal. LG wins the round. They're almost at the point where they need to be, Jesse. One more, and they can close out the first half 4-2, just as they need to do.
Can you believe Woos was negative coming into this game? You wouldn't know it based on how he's playing. Just absolutely crushing both Wildcard and his former teammate of Bay. Woos playing exceptionally. Undoubtedly, this has been his best game that he's had so far on LG. Not done yet, of course, plenty of game to play, but this is a start that you only dream of as a rookie player. To be putting up such incredible numbers and having such incredible impact as well certainly does bode well for them. Wildcard just couldn't get that push to really work for them. They had a clear idea of what they wanted to do, but it really relied on getting control of Drum and Geisha. And while they eventually got that control, at least they eventually got inside of Drum, it cost them so many bodies. Woos just racking up those kills, and of course his teammates as well helping to contribute. Silent, I like that pick in the 2v2, making sure that LG didn't toss another 2v2, which is typically favored towards the defenders on a map like Skyscraper. So good to see from LG. They will get a minimum of 3 rounds this half, but of course they're hunting for 4.
I mean, I feel like that stat line, by the way, about Woos is not deceptive, but I mean, it's his first time ever competing at a tier 1 level. I mean, he's going to have a rough go of it as he navigates competing against the best of the best in North America. And especially on the role that he tends to play on. I mean, you don't always expect him to get the kills, but sometimes you pop off.
Yep.
I mean, look at the right side right now of your screen. Wildcard, Kansan at 2 and 5 is very out of the ordinary for a player like Kansan. But that's just the numbers. Eddie was in this position before with a shotgun out on house stairs. Saw that EMP go off. A Thatcher actually showing up. You don't see Thatchers as much as you used to, especially with the pocket EMPs and Maverick on the board. A lot of teams also just forego outright denial and will instead play farther back and bring other utility. You can see Spiff is rotated over, and that EMP will likely get open Geisha wall too. He's waiting. Instead of the Selma, why not use the exothermic charge?
That makes sense.
I like it. I do. Why did you giggle?
Because I didn't realize he was on thermite. I thought he just walked up and shot his teammate's hard breach. I was like, why would you do that? But no, the exothermic charge gets the wall that goes into Drum as well, so it's smarter to use the thermite there. Makes sense. All good.
I was like, what are you laughing at over here? But
well,
all the same, this has been probably the slowest round, Jesse, that we've seen between these two teams so far.
Yeah, I mean, they've really slowed down after the first couple. The buck from down below makes Silent's position a little bit more awkward, but he's not out of it just yet, and holding the doorway could be in a good position. It's Wi-Fi to get the first kill. 2, in fact, out of nowhere on the other side of the map. Still, we have Silent, who's just hunting for this buck down below him. He's gone fishing. He doesn't quite get it. There he finds it. There goes Bay. Unfortunate for the newest member of Wildcard. Now that's a 2-man disadvantage. Spiker looking to get that trade, and he will find it, bring him up to double digits in kills, but is it going to matter? Now a man disadvantage still. 2v1, 2v3 with 45 seconds to go.
You talked about how Wi-Fi is not usually involved in those first kills, but these have been highly impactful moments for him. Spiker will have to watch Bosco as he gets the diffuser down. If they even make it to that point, you can see the lineup right now for LG. 1 at bar, that's Wi-Fi. He'll be the first line of contact. The other 2 players from from Luminosity deeper inside of the site, both hugging that B bomb chassis. They have a good idea as to where Spiker is, as a single bullet will trace through the wall. Woos continuing his exceptional play. Both he and Spiker now sitting at 10 kills apiece. Bosco in an unlucky position by Dragon, rocking the space station charm from when he won his 2nd world championship, but it's not going to matter to find the kill. LG gets the job done. 4-2 the first half. They ride the favorable side. They make Wildcard hurt, and now Can Wildcard close that gap, or will LG run away with it?
The two W's doing well in that round, both Wi-Fi early and then Woos a little bit later. Starting to march their way towards a third W if this game continues on the pace that it's at. Luminosity now 4-2. They've looked like very much in control when these rounds have slowed down. You know, once they've been able to kind of play a more normal Skyscraper, dictate the pace a little bit more, maybe giving up some extra ground to Wildcard, but not actively engaging in a lot of those fights that we were seeing in the first couple of rounds on their own game. They've been very consistent. Now they've got to swap to the harder side. Attacking is always more of a challenge on Skyscraper. When it comes to these teams in particular, both of them slightly favor the defense, but we don't have anything too lopsided, so the stats are very average on attack and defense from both Luminosity and Wildcard. Wildcard came to this map for a reason. They knew Luminosity were good here. They knew that LG were a very strong Skyscraper team. They still decided to take them to a map like Sky, where they're yet to lose all season long. I hope that means that they have some brilliant strategies in store for us. They will swap to the defense, and we'll get to finally take a look at what they've been planning coming to this NAL map for the first time this stage.
I like the Capkin. I like the Frost. This is a lineup from Wildcard that will absolutely slow down Luminosity. This is a number of the operators that we talked about in the first half. You'll have some serious work to cut through at this point. A lot of nuisance ops on the side of Luminosity, though. The Blitz, the Dokkaebi, the Grim. Very limited Deimos, by the way, today in NA. I think it's quite surprising when we watch Brazil and we cast it, and then we go to NA, and suddenly it's, you don't really see shield bans, and when you do, you don't really see the shield played as frequently. You don't see Deimos anywhere near as much. Lion's pick rate has also fallen off of a cliff. Ash, a very high pick rate operator as of late in Brazil. I know you kind of joked about it yesterday, but she basically doesn't exist in NA. I think we've seen like 3 Ashes today in total, if memory serves correctly. So not as frequently used. And I do really like these regional matchups because they show us how these teams will then transition from inter-regional play to international play. You know, it's every single league is going to learn from the other leagues when they collide in Montreal, just as they did in Manchester. And with one fewer live event, it becomes a bit more challenging for teams to get a feel for the other regions. So the better teams tend to adapt and learn faster. And that, I think, is pretty nice.
Lots of utility in pocket for LG right now. Look at this, 2 logic bombs, 5 beehives in the pocket of Woos. This Blitz as well, waiting on the black stairs. When they go for their execute, it's going to be explosive, Parker. They got plenty of time to wait and bite out for when they want to go. And there will be some problems as well. Frostmat's Capcans, you brought it up. That can be devastating to a quick Blitz push. As the Toxic Babes come out and continue to stall, they will be in no rush to make this happen, although Wi-Fi going down means that both of those logic bombs will not be a factor, nor will the bees. Woos used one of his gadgets, but unfortunately didn't have anything more than that. Another player dies below. That starts to equalize things, but LG, they've just been robbed of a ton of their most important utility.
And the worst part, you've got one player down below who's now going to need to take up the stairs. Kixrow isolated in his position by the toxic gas. A return to the site by Bay catches Silent off guard. Down goes Spiker, but he's traded out immediately by Kansan. And as long as Wildcard can keep these numbers close, they will do well this entire half on defense. Kixrow's been languishing in this position. He now looks towards gold. That's exactly where one of the defenders are sitting, but they will give him no quarter at all. Kansan will likely be the one to claim this kill unless somebody else from Wildcard gets aggressive. And no, it's Kansan over by Gold, who pops up and finishes things off. A very defender-sided Skyscraper, as we anticipated.
Yep.
Only 2 attacking round victories so far, and Wildcard has cut LG's lead to 1.
I don't mind taking some time to set up your push, but that was a little bit too much time. Luminosity throughout this stage have been one of the fastest teams in North America. They're actually tied for the fastest with their average first gunfight coming in at 1:39 on the clock. That round, they were sitting outside the bomb site. They were sitting on the karaoke window, on the black stairs, on the black door for what felt like ages. And eventually Wildcard just said, why don't we just swing these guys and see what happens? Got 2 big picks to really start things off. And I don't know if that's how Luminosity expected that push to really begin. You know, they wanted to have that explosive entry with logic bombs and with bees coming through from woos and with all this utility, but it just didn't exist when they finally got ready for the for that execute. And despite trying to get that blitz in there from Eddie, an operator he's played quite a bit so far this stage, just couldn't find that success. Good shots from Kansan as well, who continues to be one of the best players inside of all of North America. Maybe negative throughout this game, but he is one of those guys that you just can never underestimate when it comes to his individual play. Has proven it many times before and can still prove it later on today through the second half, because he can be so exceptional in the late rounds.
Yeah, and I mean, he was a standout when he was on Sonics. When he was moved off of the team, it was speculated that it wasn't necessarily due to his in-game ability, but more of a personnel issue, which is fine. Some players just don't really vibe with the rest of the team. So he's found a new home on Wildcard. And yeah, a bit of an oddity that he is underwater in terms of kills, but he'll have plenty of time to make that up. The lineup for the defenders on Wildcard, very different from what we saw in the previous round. Lots of stall potential on that lineup. This time around, well, I mean, there's still stall. You're gonna have to go through the mute jammers and deal with the banshees as well as the magnets from Wamai. The biggest stall will probably be dealing with the mirror windows. They're not as oppressive as they used to be. Now that you can smash them and take away the window that the defenders would see, Mira's pick rate has dropped a little bit. Her ban rate has dropped alongside of it. But still, Luminosity will have their work cut out for them. They have Flores drones, so they'll be able to blow up whatever they find along the way, but no real direct counter to the mute jammers. If they can't work through these defense fast enough, they'll be in trouble. Reaching the halfway mark, and Luminosity's attacks slower than Wildcard's, and through one round, less successful too.
Yeah, I mean, only just kind of getting into Geisha and starting to open up some of these walls with that mute jammer, as you mentioned, no answers to it, so they still don't even really have the drum wall open. They noticed early on with drones how much of that map was being given for free. The barricades indicated that from Wildcard, but I'm not sure about this timer now, Parker. 5v5 in a minute 12. There will likely be some gunfights taken here around drum. There's not enough room to fall back to site. So if these players want to, it'll be Spiff, the first one to come into a contact. He's 1 in 6 right now, actually chose to back on off, leaving the kills for his teammate Kansan instead, who now will lurk behind the enemy team, trying to find some way to get a pick. He is surrounded with a player on this shrine window, but if he makes an escape, boy, he could be having a huge amount of stall later on in this round.
Not an ideal situation for LG to find themselves in, so now they have to get a quick pick to equalize, or else they'll walk into the bomb site and get picked apart, and that looks like it's exactly gonna be the case. Eddie's the next one to falter. Kansan's got 2 silhouettes nearby. Wi-Fi close by. It looks like Kixrow's the other. Wi-Fi claiming Spiff. Bosco is also there for some support, but Kansan goes huge, but Wi-Fi goes even bigger. 3 kills. Bay and Spiker, the last 2 standing. It's a 2v2 yet again. The one thing I will say of this matchup, these teams are not winning dominantly. Every single round is a dogfight. Wi-Fi will need to ace clutch against Bay and Spiker, but Spiker says not today. Wildcard go 2 for 2 so far on their defenses, and we've got a tie game.
Just chaos. I love the way that Kansan played at the start of that round, of course, making the moves when his teammate fell off. Spiff went back from drum into the bomb site. I thought that was a mistake. I thought, no, there should be 2 players here playing around one another, but it was all just a bait for Kansan to get aggressive. And there's no player that you want to enable more than Kansan Yenkari. My God, the way that he's able to push up and get those kills and then fall back, stall out so well too. Spiker, of course, in the late round, he's been dominating all game long for Wildcard and will continue to do so in that 2v2, shutting down the quick 3K from Wi-Fi. 13 and 5 now for Spiker. Again, he has been so good playing on this squad. Only 19 years old, but still having such an impact for Wildcard, their second longest standing member with Kansan. Just being so much of a nuisance for LG and keeping this game so close.
I am very much enjoying this, and if the lineup if the lineup of Luminosity went through there, I was definitely going to enjoy that round, Jesse. Finka, Lion, and a Blitz as possibilities. Wi-Fi swaps to the Flores at the last second, and with the Bravas addition too, there's a lot of drone work that's going to be done by Luminosity. If Luminosity effectively looks at their attacks and says, we are suffering through a dearth of information, then why not bring extra drones? you've still got 7 drones in pocket. And while those Flores drones have a timer on them, they're still able to gain very valuable information. The clutch drones don't have a timer. So if you're not using them to hack gadgets, you can just use them like regular drones, which gives even more value to Brava. These castle barricades are being watched by one player over towards Pantry, and Wi-Fi will be able to open this up. Kixrow dies to Bosco. I'm not sure where that was, but that's the sole hard breacher on side of Luminosity. This is going to be quite the ordeal to open up Geisha and gain control of the top floor. That's really the only place you need hard breach on this bomb site, given that you're on the main floor and you don't typically see teams directly breach into either barbecue or kitchen.
Rough start for Kixrow, 2-8. Not the stage that he's wanted either. He's currently the worst player on LG from a KD perspective, so hoping to see him bounce back, of course. Hit a great stage 1, but unable to really replicate that here with the new squad. You know, the teammates are starting to make up for it as well, and I do think this push still has some legs to it. They seemingly do want to clear out this top floor. The castle barricades have been a big problem, despite the fact that they brought these Flores drones. A lot of these castle barricades do still remain. What option do you have now if you're Eddie, other than simply punching it? You don't really have much. They have a Gone 6 from Woos if he can make his way over, but who knows if that even still has a bullet left in the chamber. Looks like they got something. Oh, he just burst right through it, of course. Blitz does that sometimes. Jumps on in. The updates are great, aren't they? And great Blitz play to follow through. Eddie takes down one, Silent with another. The player at the top of Black Stairs having to fall on back because he has just been in so much trouble. Bay goes down, leaving Bosco and Spiff, the last 2 alive, as they flee back to the bomb site.
Yeah, this is an excellent take from Luminosity and have really cleared out this upstairs hold. And you did all that, again, without Kixrow, without the hard destruction that was required. Now, though, move towards the site. You outnumber Wildcard 2-1. Damage is being done to the Blitz, by the way, and Eddie would have actually died had he not pulled out that goo mine. Bosco had a great opportunity on the Black Stairs, staring down 2 of the players, Spiff eliminating Silent. He could also do some serious work. He sees the Blitz. He'll give that information to Bosco. The advance is all coming from this restaurant side. Bosco needs to be concerned with where the last and unaccounted for player is, which is Wi-Fi. Where is Wi-Fi? You see the Capitao of Roos not far removed? As Wildcard are managing to stop this in its tracks. There's some fire there. Diffuser, where's the diffuser? With 1 second left, Eddie starts it and Woo sweeps through and stops Bosco from saving the round. The first time Luminosity is able to get on the board as an attacking team comes on the 3rd site, and a rotation from Wildcard will be denied. LG up 5-4.
A little close for comfort. That one got down to the wire, but they will finally get an attack on the board. Well played by Eddie. Again, one of the best blitz players in all of North America. He's played it 4th most out of any NA player. He's rocked it 5 times, 60% win rate coming into today. Those stats, of course, don't include the rounds that we've watched thus far. Only Canadian Spirits and Kino have played the operator more in North America. And I'm a little surprised by this tactical timeout. I suppose the round count is getting up there for LG, 5-4. Despite the success they've had in the second half, they did come into it at quite a deficit. So I don't mind it just based on the scoreline alone. But I think broadly, these defenses have been going the way of Wildcard. They've been feeling quite good in them, even when LG were able to get that explosive push to the top floor. That was clutchable by Bosco. If he had been maybe a little bit more cautious in that final gunfight, it was never going to be easy, but that was certainly a winnable round, just given where the timer was at. So regardless of the success that they've had in the second half, Wildcard choosing to call the attack timeout, hopefully they can find a way around this blitz. Hopefully that's one thing that they have been talking about, because in the second half, that is seemingly the only way that Luminosity have been able to work in a round, and I expect we'll see a lot of that blitz coming out from Eddie over the next 3 here.
I don't think it's a terrible time to call a timeout. I'm more critical of teams when they do it later on, Jesse, but
Yeah.
I would love to hear if Wildcard prevail, if there's anything that Wildcard has changed behind the scenes, because I'm used to seeing Bay at the top. I'm used to seeing Cans at the top. I'm not used to seeing Spiker have this level of gameplay. And I mean, he did it on attack, which is even more impressive.
Yeah.
As for the rest of this team, again, there's 2 bottom performers on Wildcard. Usually it's Spiker and Bosco. This time, unfortunately, it's Spiff. But these are players that are still using good utility. It's been a tough match to analyze on my end of things because it has just been such a brawl. All of these players are playing like bruisers. It's, you know, pugilism is the word that I used to describe it. They just want to fight over and over and over again. And the composition from Luminosity yet again is very frag heavy. We finally see a Deimos. The Blitz is going to be a constant. And from the defenders, you are bringing a lot of stall. You've got the Kaid, you've got the Tubarão. Those are going to be your two main stall operators. We've also got an Aruni, who can potentially cause some issues. The Aruni was last played by Kansan. This time it'll be Bay rocking the DMR. And the laser gates really don't have the same effect that they used to. Aruni has kind of fallen out of the meta from where she was around the last, not the SI that just happened in Brazil, but the SI prior.
Yep.
Where her pick rate was very high. She was in, I think, the top 6 or top 7 played defending operators. And that was really just a utility suck meta. This time, the name of the game is to slow things down. The gunplay has been slowed down. ADSing has been slowed down. So if you can slow down the advance of the attackers as well, you usually be in a pretty good position on defense.
Aruni only played 11 times before today in the North American League. Certainly one of the least picked operators. Once again, this Blitz does get brought out from Eddie. Blitz has been played a few more times than 11. Very, very popular here in Stage 2, as the meta does suggest it. It's going to be another Black Stairs take. This is the exact same execute in terms of positioning-wise that Luminosity tried the last time around. Now, it got stalled when Wildcard went for a couple of big swings and really stopped the push before it got started. The utility's a bit different. They've got a Capitao this time, and it's in the hands of Silence, so they've got a bit of a different way to work this push in. But the goal is the same. Get in with the Blitz and get that plant down. The smoke and the firebolt will be oh so important to help accomplish that objective. Watch out for Wi-Fi down below as well. Can use those Deimos tracks from below to try to get cheeky kills.
They're just waiting for the call to push on in. With the fire and the Blitz to advance on that position. A smoke will go off. Eddie attempts, but it's stopped by Bay. That's the DMR. Deimos of Wi-Fi trying for a double play, but it's Bay to dominate. Bosco on the board for this round. Spiff will not get one as he's eliminated by Woos. Spiker adds to his tally 14 as he just inches out Woos for most kills in the lobby. 30 seconds to go. Watch out for Frost Mats. Woos will need a miracle here. If not, my suspicion will actually come true. We'll go 5-5, which means we will need all 12 rounds of regulation to settle the score between these teams. And Woos inching his way up backstairs, but there's a kill hole in the wall and Kansan is watching it. I would have thought that Woos had seen that, but maybe he was looking elsewhere. 5-5. What a performance by both of these teams in what's been quite messy at times, but still, probably, I would argue, our most exciting match of the day.
Big entry coming out from the rookie from Quincy, Illinois. Bay had a great little 2K, rocking that Aruni DMR, and I feel like the DMRs were so important for Wildcard in that round. We saw Kansan get the final kill on the Tubarão, of course, but just being able to shoot out the feet of Eddie. I talked about how in that tactical timeout, they need to come up with an answer to the Blitz. It's an operator that Eddie will be bringing a lot throughout this game, and DMRs are a great way. You shoot Blitz's foot, which is available when he's sprinting into the bomb site like that, it deals a ton of damage. Maybe you can't get a headshot, but if you can deal that damage anyways, you can get the down as soon as Eddie dies in that last push. It's completely halted. Luminosity have no way of getting the plant down. So those first couple of kills coming out from Bay were extra important, and the rest of the players, of course, cleaning it up at the end. Beautifully done to force, as you said, at least 12 rounds. Wildcard, it seems like the tactical timeout has paid off.
I mean, when you look at these teams in the standings, just based on the way they play, based on the map as well, I had no illusion that this was going to be a deeper matchup. And again, I want to go back to that point I made where I said sometimes it doesn't need to be beautifully done to be entertaining. This round, I suspect if Luminosity can set up and get in the groove, though, will be anything but boring. A Sens, a Glaz, and again, Eddie on the Blitz. Though the Blitz has really only had one good round, I would argue, but still, you've got a much better lineup surrounding that Blitz. Look at that. 3 sets of smokes plus Sens on the board, and then 2 nades.
Yep, and most importantly as well, no Warden. Warden's so popular on this bomb site because smokes are so good, because Ying is so good, and I get that Ying is banned, but that doesn't mean there's not still value out of a Warden. When they get going here, the Sens walls will come out, the smoke grenades as well. They brought 6 of them. They could be in for an extremely strong execute.
And that first Sens wall just went. Eddie behind the back bar. He manages to smite Bay. Silence gone. Now Eddie will follow. LG went for broke. A bit of a miss from Spiker. He gets too eager onto Kixrow. We are not even at the halfway mark, and 6 of the 10 players are dead. Make that 7. Hansen removing Loose's head from his body. Kixrow with 3 kills will need to go up to 5 for Luminosity to move to match point. Keep in mind, LG is a single point ahead of Wildcard in the standings, and it's Luminosity holding on to, right now, the 6th and final playoff spot. The top 5 have all been locked in. So both of these teams, and then 3 teams, or 2 teams rather, beneath them, are all fighting for this last opportunity at the playoffs. Plenty of play days left. With 9 HP, Kixrow will go for the disable. Spiff and Kansan know exactly where he is. They heard the case go down. 1 minute still remains in this matchup. Ridiculous to think about how fast this went. And Luminosity's experiment with the Glass and the Sens, it did not work at all. It's left Kixrow alone, afraid, dead. Spiff with the final shot, and Wildcard will move to match point. They've secured a single point, and that's huge for their playoff chances.
At the very end of that round, Kixrow tossed out a smoke grenade, and I think that's a big problem with how that push was brought out by Luminosity. They brought 6 smoke grenades. They brought 4 Sens walls. They brought a blitz, and yet it felt like nobody on Wildcard had any problems with seeing the attackers. They only used 2 of those smoke grenades during their whole push. They used 1 Sens wall. The blitz got in. I didn't see the blitz blind anybody. Might have attempted and missed, or might have done so and then it wore off. The blitz did get a kill there, but it was immediately traded. I just feel like they didn't utilize their utility to the best of their ability. I mean, they had all of those smokes to try to use, but unfortunately, a lot of them just didn't actually come out onto the map, and it allowed Wildcard to simply sit in the site. I thought with that operator composition being brought by Luminosity and no Warden on the board for Wildcard, that was going to be a brilliant, masterful execute. There were not even great C4s that could come out. There was not a huge amount of plant denial, so it felt like they had everything going for them, but the utility just wasn't there. I'm not sure if they tried to go for a 3-2-1 go type execute and the players just weren't on all the same page. Maybe somebody went before they should have. Some kind of disconnect went down throughout that push. I remember the panel, of course, talking about Dark Zero being so good at those styles of executes, and we saw it in the last game as well over OXG. Unfortunately, we're just not seeing that same proficiency come out from Luminosity, and because of that, they now face match point for their opponents.
What a time for a technical pause as well, as neither of these teams have really been able to shake one another. You look at the bottom of your screen, and it's just been a defender stranglehold on this matchup. 4-2 was the first half. 2 attacking rounds, won by Wildcard quite early. Put them in a good position for the remainder of the first half, but LG locked it down. Now it's Wildcard locking it down. LG's only been able to muster a single attacking round. All 4 of those victories by Wildcard were fought for tooth and nail. And again, neither of these teams have looked that dominant. Most rounds are ending with 1 to 2 players still alive. We're not seeing 4-0 in terms of, yeah, Luminosity loses 1, but that's it. We're talking every single match, every single round so far this match has been very scrappy. And it really doesn't allow us to sink in and talk about the dominance of either of these teams. This has not been a dominant performance for either squad. And that means the standings and all that are pretty accurate, frankly. Wildcard, though, obviously have the edge at the moment since they sit on the better side of Skyscraper. And obviously, now we'll be able to talk about how Skyscraper's played in NA, because prior to this matchup, again, there had only been 9 rounds played. 4 rounds won by the attackers, 5 by the defenders. This time, it's a lot more lopsided. The attackers have only won 3 of the 11 rounds, and that is pretty typical for Skyscraper.
So with Wildcard getting to 6, they deny the 3-point total from Luminosity, which means that their auto lock into playoffs is now gone. Of course, they still have opportunities to make those playoff spots. This is undoubtedly the most important game that both teams have played throughout this stage. both being the cusp of playoffs. It's so vital to win this matchup, and the fact that it goes to overtime means that we're likely to need the next couple of weeks as well. Next couple of play days, I should say. This is a super week for NAL. We'll finish the group stage by Friday, so we will definitely know who's in playoffs by the end of that. Luminosity, of course, hopefully going to take their time in this technical pause to calm themselves down. The nerves are likely very high at the moment. LG are still a very young team. All 5 of their players have quite little experience. They do have a bit of LAN experience now after the offseason, and of course, they do have a bit of time in Tier 1 as well. So it's not like they are completely brand new, but compared to what we have of some of the players on Wildcard, with Bosco and Kansan having attended many LANs, Bosco a world champion twice over, it's obviously a bit of a gap there. It's really going to be a test for Luminosity to keep their mental in such a high-stress game like this one is.
Just waiting on an update as to what the technical issues are, but I mean, you can see the long faces on the players. I feel very similarly whenever these issues befall us. They're not allowed to talk, by the way. That's the one big distinguishing factor here, is a lot of people think that when these tech pauses happen, they can communicate amongst each other. That is not the case. Your mic is supposed to be muted. I don't know particularly how well enforced it is, but the main point I'm making is that you can't use a technical pause to try and strategize. You can't use a technical pause to try and improve your own play. Beautiful scenes of Japan, though, on our screen.
Of course. And obviously, we're working through to get these tech issues resolved ASAP. I want to make sure that this next round is being played at its highest potential.
Jesse?
Yes, Parker?
Sounds like whatever is wrong, not going to be easily fixed. We have a break ready. We'll be back with what could be the final round of Luminosity versus Wildcard. As you can hear the sounds of gunfire, the TCSG, one of the most distinct guns in the entire game, in the hands, very capable hands of Bosco, means we're back in game. Do we see Wildcard finish this out 7-5, taking all 3 points and vaulting up into that 6th and final playoff spot? Do we go to overtime?
5 seconds remaining.
Does Luminosity somehow invent a time machine and go back and win the last round, and then actually end up winning 7-5 themselves, Jesse? All 3 of these have basically the same level of statistical probability.
Well, there's 3 outcomes, which means there's a 1 in 3 chance of each thing happening. So yeah, I mean, that does check out. Luminosity, of course, would have loved to have that 7-5 because that would have locked them into playoffs, but not to be. They will still be fighting for that spot. Now they're here in overtime as well, and getting into things pretty quickly. Already into the office extension, trying to clear out this top floor. Of course, the bomb site is Barbecue and Kitchen. Typically one of the more attacker-sided bomb sites. It's the one that Luminosity have been able to win so far, and it's a very similar setup. Wildcard with these castle barricades. That is an unfortunate frag grenade, which just doesn't manage to take out that castle. We see that sometimes with those nades. They can be deceptive. So unfortunately, they're going to have to use some more utility to clear out the castle, and the Surya gate behind it. Not going to be easy. Silent trying to make some work done, of course, with this Ash. It's going to be very important for Wildcard if they want this 7-5 win, that they stop some of these players before they can get towards the bomb site. You need to get a bit of a man advantage. If Luminosity have 5 players alive and full site control, or full top control, I should say, you've basically already lost. So it's very vital that Wildcard can collect some kills in the first part of this round. At the moment, Luminosity yet to really get things going. I imagine once Eddie makes his way over towards Karaoke and towards Tea Room, that's going to be where we see the fighting start.
Some pronounced struggles by Eddie on that blitz. They've got a drone on the Aruni, and with the information, Kixrow still bottles the engagement. And Wildcard have set themselves up beautifully to close this one out, Jesse. Wi-Fi blown sky high from the Nitro cell. And now it's Silent to take up position where Kixrow had died previously. He's got a soft wall. Will now head towards the stairs, just missing the DMR of Bay and managing to secure the kill. One more from LG will turn this back into a 3v3, but while Luminosity have advanced from that direction, they have not wrestled control of T away from Wildcard. They still hold this position, and oh my, if Spiff has gone undroned, this could be a big challenge. Some damage being done as Eddie walks in. A flash from the Legion Spiker to take out Woos. LG's waited this entire time for one last opportunity to win this, or at least win the round and go into regulation. A small problem, what was Eddie doing? How do you not know somebody is there? Spiff with 2 big kills, and Wildcard win the match on a wild final round.
And for the first time since he left the same team, Bay will take out Woos. Finally get some revenge, put that in the group chat. Sure, they're going to be feeling pretty good about it. And of course, the standings implications, absolutely massive. Huge win for Wildcard. You see it on the face of everybody of LG. They know just how important that loss was. That is a vital one that they needed to win to have a very strong spot at taking that playoffs. Now, the LCQ looking so much closer. It is not decided. It is not over yet. Luminosity will still have the next couple of days to try to rack up points, but Wildcard will take the lead and will, for the moment, sit in that playoff spot.
The only downside to this Wildcard matchup is that they've only got 1 game left. They're the last team to have a bye in the final play day. That's it for our 3rd matchup. 1 more awaits us. C9BC versus SSG coming up next.
The North American League playoff race is still as wide open as it's ever been for one final spot to determine who goes to the bracket, and it's not all set in stone. There was a chance, if Luminosity got all 3 points in this matchup, that they would suddenly be the only people left in the playoff hunt, but now Wildcard have kept themselves alive and consequentially have kept OXG and Los somehow still in this race with that 7-5 victory on Sky.
I regret not changing my prediction for the right game, to say the least. But again, I'm not surprised by the win here. I mean, this still went down to the wire, but Wildcard, I mean, again, we talked about this map. This map looks good for them, how their play style was, that we would see that team play coming out, and that's exactly what we saw. Again, it was a good back and forth from both these teams, but nonetheless, I mean, Wildcard did exactly what we need them to do, or what they need for themselves to do in order to still try to have this playoff run.
Yeah, they did a really good job on attack, really trading their fights, really fighting for the positions that they needed, especially the back and forth between Geisha, the vertical play over there was really nice. And then once the sides swapped, that's where you still saw a good amount of back and forth, but Wildcard was really very consistent on playing around that objective base, always bringing the time down to the bombs, always bringing it down to the diffuser, slowing it down and forcing Luminosity to have to get out of their comfort zone and go for those executes. And more often than not, Wildcard was just able to come up top, especially in those last 2 rounds.
And to be fair, we haven't been able to talk about Spiker too much or highlight him and his performance specifically.
17 and 8
yeah,
today.
I mean, he wanted it. He did not want to fall out of that spot of possibly qualifying for that playoffs, and he put up one hell of a performance. I mean, the EPS 156, 17 kills, highest impact player, almost sitting at a 1.0 rating. I mean, Spiker was literally a spike in LG side.
He almost got as many kills as he is old.
That's
Close
true.
enough.
That's true.
He was like 1 off, right? Or 2 off?
I think he's 19. So if you just add the entry, I believe that was just 2 on. I think that was Wi-Fi. I don't know.
That was
just
Wi-Fi.
add that. Yeah, you just add that. He's sitting at his age.
If Laxing had to do that, he would have had to get, what, 32, 35 kills in one match?
Yeah, yeah, that is crazy.
27.
But anyway, I mean, that was a great game from Wildcard, and that's exactly what we needed to see. And then also, it keeps the points very close in standings and makes it so that they also have a life. It's not as comfortable for Luminosity in these next couple days. It makes everything a lot more down to the wire, and that, thankfully, for Wildcard, it's going to be a lot more exciting in the next 2 days.
And just really quick, Wildcard only has 1 more day, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
that's true. They only have 1 game to play tomorrow,
and then that is it.
Yep.
So the fact that they secured 3, if they can secure tomorrow, I don't know if that necessarily guarantees them a spot, but obviously it does put them in a very good spot compared to, obviously, had they lost here or even just mustered 1 point out of this.
Right. No, there's 100% a chance, and it just goes to show that when there's only 1 spot left, every single point matters as dearly as any other point ever possibly could. We wanted to bring Bay in the interview seat today to talk about how this one went. Dude, congratulations on the victory, and also welcome to the North American League. It's wonderful to get the chance to talk to you, brother. Talk to me about this game in particular. When you saw it with Skyscraper, were you excited or were you a little nervous?
I thought Skyscraper was a really good map to go here. That was kind of our goal. to go Sky the whole time, Sky or Border actually, but whatever. Those attacks, we started attack really good. Even though we ended 2-4, bro, we were so happy with that because like Sky is just one of those maps where you get what you can take on attack.
Hey.
We did pretty solid.
In this meta, sometimes all you need is literally 1 round on attack, or even 2 for that matter. So any little bit does give you grace. But I want to ask you specifically, what's been the biggest hurdle for you as a player individually coming onto this roster, and then just throughout the team's dynamic of performance?
Going from T2 to T1, it's kind of hard to like, you play way more as a team rather than just like focusing on individually. So that's definitely the biggest hurdle. I think we like in the beginning of this stage, you could definitely see where we were lacking some stuff, but the more like scrims we get, like we're just on like a solid uphill, just getting better every day.
For sure.
That's great. And so my question is more about the mental game. So this is your guys' last week to get a chance to make it to playoffs, and you guys were able to get that win today. Did the pressure of knowing that if you didn't get this win, did that have any effect, or does it have any effect in your guys' play for this next week?
Win or lose, like we're just gonna take every game. We just want to win every game because like even if we know we can't make playoffs or like secured for it, we just want to win every game really.
What's it like when you mentioned a little bit the transition from Tier 2 into Tier 1, but you're also allowed to play on several different types of operators. Are you noticing that you're in a position to kind of flex around to really whatever you need as the situation calls for it? Are you allowed to have a little bit more agency over specifically what you want to play and where? Where do you fit on this team, and how comfortable are you with the way that you're currently playing right now?
I'm kind of doing the same stuff I was doing on SSGA, just to like keep myself comfortable like playing the game. Because there's a lot of spots I don't play. Like there's a couple spots on this team that I switch to like on certain maps, but
sure,
I'm pretty much on the same rules, so I'm like very comfortable.
You've got one more game left in this stage so far, with the opportunity to get any points in order to lock playoffs in. That's against Space Station, which is a tall hill to climb, but is there anything about that game you want to give us for a little preview of how that one might go?
I think it'll be a really fun game. I think it'll be close. Those guys are very fun to play against. They're I got a lot of respect for him. I think it'll be a good game.
And also, last thing for you, it was a Jesse point that he brought up during the match. Since you and Woos were on the same Aerial Rise team and finally split, of all the different times that you played in a Tier 2 capacity, the first time you guys play in Tier 1, you finally get a win. I know it's all in good fun, but is there anything you want to say to Woos, dude?
I mean, it was a good game either way, but yeah, he's been farming me for too long. I had to put him down.
Had to get the revenge, dude. Hey, again, congratulations. Welcome to the league, man. Hope to see a lot more of this sort of performance from you, and we'll see you tomorrow against Space Station. All right, man?
Yep, thank you. You have a good one.
Big deal for Wildcard to get those 3 points because it keeps them alive, keeps Los alive, keeps OXG alive, and it means we have plenty of games that are actually way more impactful tomorrow as a result.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything really coming down to the last few plays is what we want to see, especially as a viewer. So thank you to Wildcard from all the viewers.
Yes.
It's going to make things a lot more exciting. And every game, every point really does matter. And so it's kind of bittersweet if you're Wildcard to get to this point where it's like now things are starting to work.
Yeah.
But just like Bay said in the interview, regardless of if they do make playoffs, it's all about getting better. And there's always the LCQ, which, you know, no one wants to be found there. But if you have to, as long as you're taking your losses and turning them to positives, you have to be happy.
And that is the right mentality to have. And even when you look at some prestige rosters of like even a team like Liquid, they went through LCQs. They had a terrible stage 1.
Yep.
They went through LCQs, end up qualifying for Manchester, make main stage, then have continued to have a dominant performance and are looking extremely strong. Obviously, these aren't the same caliber of players, but it's still that mentality that just goes to show just because you don't find yourself in a winning seat or in that driver's seat doesn't mean you can't put yourself there with a little more work and a little more time together.
Yeah, it's always darkest before the dawn, right? You have the chance to make things better only after things have gotten worse. And for Wildcard, they may finally be turning a new leaf and may still have a chance to lock themselves into playoffs. But now we have to turn our attention back to the race for the top 2 because both of these teams are vying for that spot about as hard as you possibly can. Space Station and C9BC after the break.
I guess I'll do this for the setup tour. It's a new mouse I got and I love it. Ignore the design. It's like it's a WL mouse. It's from China or something. It was actually sold out, so I couldn't get a normal color. That's why all these weird like dog designs are on it. I'm not like a big fan of that stuff. I won't say it.
I play with this WL Beast X mouse. It's a new one for me. I like it very much. And of course, I'm using the Woodsing. Just need this to play. Mousepad, I don't like. Whatever.
It's just bad, man. But ever since I got her, I won a major. Before I didn't have her, I didn't. So she has to be good luck.
People would say I was narcissistic, but this is me. And then this is my beautiful team, and I have that sitting right next to me, and I look at it every time we lose a round, so I know that it's just temporary.
If I make the major, I'm taking this one right here. This is like my deluxe. I'm right here.
I'll do Mayor McCheese, obviously. I always have him with me.
I'm not like superstitious really, so I don't want to say a good luck charm. Bears are my spirit animal, I would say. And I also think this is it's funny. It's a little bear in a can. I actually get pulled over at security all the time because like they'll see my backpack and they'll be like, oh, you got like canned food in your bag, and then I literally start laughing when I pull this out. And especially in Canada, they always find it funny. So
this one could be a real slobber knocker of a game.
They've got to clear out that position. That one's through the screen as Spirit pops the head. Managing to close it out. Spirits must know that they're there. Manages to find the kill. 2v1 Frida is low health though. Oh, the take from Spirits in the 1v1. Holding onto the back of Spirits. They've traded places, but Frida has that one